Spirits of French Lick is proud to introduce the Matty Gladden Bottled and Bond Bourbon. This 4-year aged bourbon is double pot distilled and non-chill filtered and has a full-bodied mouthfeel with eucalyptus, molasses, clove, ginger, and slight citrus as well as grains of paradise. The finish is long and reappearing on the back of the tongue with notes of pepper, tobacco leaf, and mint green. All of our spirits are available for tasting and purchase inside the French Lick Winery and Distillery. Spirits of French Lick. Respect the grain, please enjoy responsibly, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Welcome everybody to my first ever barrel pick podcast. I'm almost getting ready to podcast, putting on the headphones. The podcast was Knob Creek down in Bardstown with the Kentucky Bourbon Festival barrel picking board. Alright, what I'm doing here is I'm opening up to I have some ice. I'm going to put this, I got this Party Source 120 proof 9-year 5-month single barrel from the Party Source in Kentucky that I picked up. 120 proof. I'm going to be tasting that, but for now I'm going to put it on the rocks. I've got my shot ice, which I like. It's a nice Cuban shape of a shot glass. Cheers, everybody. Wow. Gotta say that one's pretty good. We'll taste that while we're going along. Let's hope let's see what we got here. I believe that's right. Yep, we'll get this set up. Getting ready for the well, that was right. There we go. Let's wait for it to hook up to my phone. There we go, we are hooked up. Go. I think that's good. I think we got that going. Let's see as if I see that shadow disappear back and forth if I bend over when I'm talking on the microphone. But let's pop this microphone up a little bit. Yeah, that's working pretty good. In front of me. Now I gotta do the posts. Alright, we are ready to go. Once again, this is the barrel pick part of my glasses. Patreon, YouTube. Alright, this is all me. So we're gonna start. Welcome everybody. Here we go. I am back.
ask why. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, if we don't find down that whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you, I tell you, I tell you we must die.
Welcome back, everybody. I am back for another exciting podcast of the Scotchy Bourbon Boy. This here is going to be a tiny talk, as Young Nose has so, what would you say? He has named this. I think he did this a little bit out of making fun, but I just rolled with it. It's the tiny talk. This is the Scotchy Bourbon Boy podcast where I kind of cover a subject. I don't rate anything or go over, but I'm going to be drinking Nom Creek, the subject matter of today's Tiny Talk, based off of the fact that I last week, on Wednesday, a week ago from recording this podcast, was down in Bardstown for the Kentucky Bourbon Festival barrel pick of Knob Creek with Steve Coos, Randy Prossi, the Justins from Justin's House of Bourbon, and then also Emma, Randy's assistant. Then also Steve brought a friend from Alaska, and we also tasted with Freddie Noe. So that's what we did. So that's what this week's subject's going to be about. Right now, I have a Knob Creek. On my way home, I stopped at the Party Source on the border of Cincinnati and Kentucky. The Party Source. This is a 9-year, 5-month-old, 120 proof store pick single barrel Knob Creek. Pop that open. Starting off, tonight I put that on ice. I've got my little shot glass ice, which I like because, if I'm going to drink it on ice, I drop it in my cup, I fill it to the top, maybe a little bit more, giving me my shot, and then let it cool down my whiskey. So I will be tasting tonight in Glencairn, and then also a special treat that we have coming up that will be also coming off of that we will be talking about, and I will be drinking along with you guys. So if you have any Knob Creek, get it in your glass. This is going to be a fun one. So our sponsor is the Spirits of French Lick. The Spirits of French Lick is the largest pot still distillery in the state of Indiana. Pot still distillation is a small batch process focused on the concentration and retention of flavor and aroma. It is reflective of the grain, fruit, and other locally sourced ingredients. The distillery focuses on 4 pillars of distilling: bourbon, brandy, botanical spirits, and American whiskey. They do bourbon, gin, absinthe, rum, and along with American whiskey and brandy, the apple brandy that came out this past, I'm going to be trying to get a bottle when I go down there. The Spirit of French Lick pays tribute to the many distilleries that once dotted the southern hills of Indiana pre-Prohibition. We focus on using the best practices of those early times in the balance with the improved methods of today. Our spirits are crafted from the finest agricultural products that can be grown or sourced. Spirit of French Lick's distilling philosophy is balance between the distiller's art and the contribution of the barrel, time, and patience. Our motto is simple: respect the grain. I'm getting excited. Today we are 2 weeks away from heading down to Bardstown for our Scotchy Bourbon Boy trip. We will be with Super Nash, Roxy, and then also a little bit later, Young Nose will be joining us. We are going down for another barrel pick, the Luca Mariano barrel pick, and that is going to be pretty exciting. But we also are going to be visiting Alan at the Spirit of French Lick Distillery in West Baden and in the area of French Lick, Indiana. And what we have a little bit of sad news. It's happy news, but sad news at the time. Jolie Kasperzak, who he is a very good friend and Scotchy Bourbon Boy of the show, and also who worked with Alan. The two of them are fantastic people. When I went down there before and actually met them, and then been talking with Jolie throughout the time period and everything, she is going to move on to a passion project. So she's, as I believe, Tuesday, Monday, no, Tuesday, I think it was, she let me know that she had resigned, but she was going to try and stay down the road in the industry, but also she always wanted to let me know that her and Alan are 100%. It wasn't anything to do with their relationship, and their relationship will go on. But here's to you, Jolie, in your endeavors going forward. I hope our paths cross. I will keep in touch on Facebook Messenger. All right, so I can't wait. We are going to be there Thursday morning. We're going to be getting there on April 22nd. We're set up. We're going to Bardstown the 21st, but then we're going to make the hike up to Indiana, see Alan. I'm excited. We're going to do a podcast, and every time that, all the times that I've had him on the podcast or when I met him, I learned so much. His knowledge of distilling is fantastic, and I look forward to that. Plus, I might, in the next couple podcasts, we might do that Solomon Scott rye included in there that I picked up last week when I was in Bardstown, courtesy of a store pick that Steve Cousy has picked up for me. Thank you very much, Steve. So, with that said, that gets us on further to go down the line. This week, the Scotchy Bourbon Boys are on all podcast formats. Please, whatever podcast format that you listen to us, I would greatly appreciate if you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Subscriptions help us out immensely. So whatever podcast you're subscribe to the podcast, listen to the podcast regularly. We appreciate all of your support. The actual downloads and listens are getting more and more. It's growing. We are very excited about this. The other part is that we are a Facebook group. The Facebook group is growing also. We're over 375, I think it's 377 members strong. We hit the 375 mark. But as a private group where everybody is vetted before they get either invited and vetted or vetted before they get in, 375 people, active people in the industry or really, really good bourbon fans. It's exciting to have them here. And this week's newest member are, and we welcome you, Bill Smith Jr., Fred Mills, Adam Weiss, John Simpkins, and Christopher Lydall. Welcome, new members. It's great to have you. We keep growing stronger and stronger. The group is awesome. Lots of people posting, lots of people in the industry posting. Myself, I share a ton of stuff, ton of whiskey knowledge and everything in the group. It's a great group to be a part of. And then also, we have a new members meeting coming up May 8th. Saturday, May 8th will be our next meeting, and that is going to be a bookers meeting. We will be sampling from the many different expressions of bookers. I've got a couple of them, and then also that Booker's Rye. I will be letting people taste the Booker's Rye that I had obtained when I came down to Bardstown last week. So that's out there. It's check it out. Check out the group and then also the Facebook page. The event is on both. If you're in the Ohio area and you're interested in coming, contact me. We would love to have you at the meeting. We can't wait. So that will be Saturday, May 8th. Looking forward to that meeting. But also, if you want to find us on social media, we're everywhere there too. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, the Scotchy Bourbon Boys, YouTube, the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. If you want to contact us, we are the Scotchy Bourbon Boys at gmail.com. And then we also have our own website, www.scotchybourbonboys.com. Check out that website. That covers all the things that are going on, the meetings. We also have Young Nose Johnson has his Scotchy, what does he call it? He calls it the Scotchy Corner. And check out his monthly blog on different subjects of tasting. It's a very unique kind of blog, well worth checking out. And then also, you can connect to us on the website, or you can go straight to Patreon. But if you're on the website, click on that Patreon. Click on that Patreon button. Check out what you can get. There's a ton of Scotchy Bourbon Boy swag and different things and ways to support us. There's a posting chip, and then you also can get the Glencairn level where you can get this Scotchy Bourbon Boys Glencairn, and then also there's higher amounts where you get Glencairn's T-shirts, tastings, special tastings with Scotchy Bourbon Boys, Zoom meeting tastings, in person type, and then also some of the stuff down the line when we start to do our trips and our barrel picks. We're going to be taking members along with us as we go along. So that Patreon support is very important. So if you can get there, support us, we will greatly appreciate it. So there we go as far as all the promotion stuff and everything, and that gets us to this week's subject matter. It is Knob Creek. I'm going to flip this over here. I've got a little bit of subject matter as far as history on Knob Creek. Knob Creek, established in 1992. Booker, it was part of his small bean collection. He's basically, this is whiskey the way it used to be, the way it was meant to be. That's what Booker wanted to say about the Knob Creek brand. First released in 1992 by Booker Noe, the sixth-generation master distiller. Knob Creek 9-year-old bourbon became a prized member of the Bean Small Batch Bourbon Collection. Along with Basil Hayden, Bakers, and Bookers, Knob Creek aims to recapture a pre-Prohibition style bourbon. With more time spent in the barrel and bottled at a higher proof, this bourbon is named for the creek that ran behind Abraham Lincoln's childhood home in Kentucky. So the grain recipe is the same one as Jim Beam's, Bakers, and Booker's. So they all use the proprietary traditional bourbon mash bill, which is not disclosed. Although the Jim Beam Distillery makes several different brands of bourbon, they are all produced on the same column still, which is 60 feet tall and 6 feet wide and stands around 6 stories high. There are 22 fermenters at the distillery. Knob Creek is distilled to around 130 proof, 65 ABV, and enters the barrel at around 125 proof. Knob Creek is aged in new charred white oak barrels with a level 4 char, which is around 55 seconds of applied flame. The brand does again carry the 9-year age statement. It dropped it for a while, but it just reappeared on shelves this spring. Just recently that picked that age statement up, which is great. Now, Fred and Freddie talk about why they had dropped that 9 years age statement. And the main reason is that the bourbon boom was happening, and they were able to, using some younger whiskeys, and they were able to keep Knob Creek on the shelf consistently and still hit the flavor profile. So that's why they took it off. But just recently, obviously, they've been producing a lot more. They've upped that, they've upped the age of what's going in there, and it's back to a 9-year age statement. So what a 9-year age statement means is the youngest bourbon in Knob Creek is 9. There can be 10-year-old and 11 and 12. It doesn't. But the youngest bourbon in there is 9 years. So that's kind of a cool thing about it. All right. So, all rack houses at the Jim Beam Distillery are 9 floors high, and the barrels for Knob Creek are always sourced from the middle, never the top 2 or the bottom 2. The final flagship label of Knob Creek is bottled at 100 proof. Now, they've been putting out a lot of 120 proof. So, one of the cool things about this barrel pick that I went down to Bardstown, Kentucky for was the fact I knew about this for a while. I had been talking to Randy. We had been getting together. I had gone down. But with COVID restrictions and everything that was going on and going through corporate, they weren't able to make it happen as fast as they'd like or how they'd like. Now, picking normal barrel picks, which happen at the distilleries in normal times, you go to the distillery, you get in a rick house, there's barrels out there. Now, when I went down in 2019, I did their special lunch with Fred and Freddie, and then also a distillery tour, which involved I used the lung hammer to open up the barrel, which was really cool, and then we got to thieve with the thief, the copper thief that they had there, and we were able to pull that 6-year Jim Beam Black out of the barrel and taste it directly from the barrel. So that was really kind of a cool thing. It wasn't a barrel pick, it was actually a barrel drink. And got to keep the glass, everything like that. That was an amazing experience. So normally, when you do a barrel pick, what happens is you go to the distillery, into the rick house, and they'll have 6 barrels there that they've already, that Freddie would have hand-picked out from different parts of the rick house, and then brought them, down, and then when you went in, you would have thieved out it, and everybody would have picked, and you would have talked about it and picked. But in this particular case, because of what's going on, and the Jim Beam Distillery at the moment is closed due to the current world conditions, we went and we were able to go to the offices of Kentucky Bourbon Festival, and Freddie, he brought the samples with him. So initially when we started, he wasn't hugely happy that he had brought 3. He thought he was going to bring more, said if we needed to come up with any more, he would. But overall, the 3 he brought was fantastic. I was able to obtain the first bottle. Now, he knew based off of everything there, this is the KCSB Select, 120.5 proof, location Z03032. So this was from the warehouse Z, which is in, this particular warehouse was in Claremont, and it was, there's the batch and then the RFID number. So he basically had, this identified the barrel that it was, and this was put in, and we all was put in number 1. And there was 2 other bottles that we put into Glencairns and then compared. The second bottle was 122.5 proof. The third barrel was 133.6 proof, which was amazing barrel proof, but they're all barrels proof bourbons. They all came directly out of the barrel. Now, this particular one, if we would have picked it, now Freddie actually signed my bottle, which is really cool, because this is my first barrel pick that I ever did, and I was able to walk away with one of them and the bottle signed. So that was really kind of cool. So tonight I'm going to pour a little bit in one Glencairn, and then I'm going to put that other Knob Creek in there. They all were 9-year, 5 months, 7 months, and 9 years. I think 11 months. So they all were, right in the Knob Creek. Now, the first, he told us where the barrels were. Now, I did not know this, but there's Knob Creek aging down in a warehouse in Boston, which is the Boston plant, where a lot of the distillation goes for some of the other bookers and bakers, and then also there's a warehouse for aging Knob Creek in Claremont. So he basically had one from Clearmont and the other two were from the Boston plants. And the two from the Boston plants, he was pulling from the edges of where Knob Creek ages, right on the edges, because when he was sampling the barrels, he finds that he knows where some of the better, you do this long enough, you know where some of the better barrels are. So he was pulling the samples from different places. So that was really the cool thing to understand of how he was selecting it for this particular Kentucky Bourbon Festival barrel peg. Now, initially, this is something that it's my first barrel peg. I basically got up at 5 o'clock, was out of the house by 5:30. In Bardstown by, I believe, 11:45, where we went over to the Heaven Hill Distillery, checked out their gift shop. I was able to pick up a bottle of bourbon there. And then we headed over, got to the Spalding Hall in Bardstown at about 12:30. Met Randy and Steve, went upstairs. The barrel pick was for 1 o'clock. I didn't eat. I had breakfast on the way down. I ate in the car, but we weren't smart. I don't know if that's a good way to put it. I wasn't educated enough, and I should be, because the only time I ever get in trouble when I'm drinking is if I haven't eaten. A lot of times I might not eat because I don't want to drink a lot, but I really want to kind of have fun. If I drink a lot, I don't get drunk. I'm a big guy, so I don't get drunk very fast. So a lot of times, if that was what I was trying to do, and in this case I wasn't, I would have a meal, and that's fine. But in this case, with what was going on, just for whatever reason, I zoned and I didn't eat. Now that was number one rookie mistake. Now, initially we were all upstairs. We were waiting for Freddie to come. Everybody was talking. There were chips. There was some cheese. There was some, the hors d'oeuvre kind of things. And for whatever reason, I decided that I wasn't going to do that. So, got everything set up. We kind of, Freddie came, told us about the 3 bourbons, and he brought a couple gifts, tasting things that we'll talk about in a little bit. And we started with the introductions. It was really cool to meet both the Justins from Justin's House of Bourbon. Very cool guys. I look forward to meeting with them again and maybe doing a podcast with them. So I was sitting next to Justin, and then my wife also came along, and she kind of was in the background doing some of the audiovisual, taking pictures for me. That's one thing that I love to get. I'll have some of those up when we post this. And then also on the podcast, on YouTube, I will put pictures in as we talk and go about, the editing. But for this particular podcast, you'll see it when I post it to Facebook. I'll have a bunch of the pictures that went along with this particular tasting. Now, we started off, nosed everything. Everybody got to pour what they wanted in their glass, and the 3 bourbons were put in order of lowest proof to highest proof, which we already went over what that was. And then everybody started nosing and talking about where it was. And then as we went to taste the first one, Freddie talked about each one individually, where they were, what he thought, and then we would taste. And then the second, and then we did it with the second, and then the third. Now, that's pretty good. I like Knob Creek. Always like Knob Creek. So we got to the third one, high proof, 133.6, and it was fantastic. It was spicy, it was bold, it was rich, but I thought the second one, at 122.5, the spice didn't get in the way. It was spicy, but it didn't get in the way of that mid-palate vanilla that existed in that second one. The first one was more towards what you would consider the normal Knob Creek. There wasn't probably a little bit sweeter. But that second one, that vanilla, it was just like a vanilla bomb. And then the third one definitely was a barrel proof, full bodied bourbon. I love that. But we're not picking a barrel proof bourbon here. We're picking a 120 proof bourbon. So then we kind of went back and forth. Everybody talked. And then Freddie gave us a little bit of a more background type stuff and how he, as a distiller, uses his palate and what he uses it for. So that was really cool. And then we kind of went back at it, and then we voted. So when we voted, there was 8 of us, and my wife would be the ninth. I was letting her sip on some of the stuff, but it pretty much was a tie, 4-4. Justin, both Justins, myself, and uh, Freddie liked number 2, and Steve, Randy, Emma, and Steve's friend. They like the barrel strength. I like the barrel strength. I can't say that I didn't like the barrel strength. I just liked that vanilla bomb that was happening, in number 2. So I had gone with that. So my wife also liked number 3. So it was kind of like 5-4. But then Freddie started talking about that number 2 that wasn't going to be that wasn't going to be watered down. It's 122.5. It's if you get to 120, there's not going to be that huge flavor difference. He said at 133.5, to take that down to 120, it's going to be different in that bottom. So we all kind of talked about that. He talked about it. He even said that if we don't pick that barrel number 2, he's going to pick it for something. He'll use it for something. He thought it was spectacular. He just loved it. He's not a big fan. He said that he's not a huge fan of a lot of oak, and he felt that the third one had a little bit more oak kind of than the second one, and I would agree with that. So if you loved oak, and also all the women in the room picked that 133.5 proof, I find that women love high proof bourbon. There's no doubt about it. They're just proof junkies. There's no 100%. Not all the time, but for the most part, that just seems what they like, what their palate likes. It's really kind of a cool thing. So we ended up talking, and then went to 6-3, I think, of the 9 people, or 5-3, 5-3. No, it actually went to 6-3. So the final thing was the number 2, and we picked the number 2, and then Freddie, pulled out 3 more bourbons. One was what's coming out soon, Jacob's Well, and that's going to be how we got to taste that, which was really cool. Very good bourbon. Then 2, they are working on Fred's lineage. So the lineage, we got to see the in progress of the lineage at that time. So that was really kind of cool. And then the last thing that he let us taste was we got to taste the Little Book 5. Didn't give us any details because that's still coming out. It was fantastic. It was like something no other whiskey. I don't even know if it's a bourbon because there could be other stuff in it. But he didn't give us details. But it wasn't like anything that I had ever tasted before, and I really liked it. So having to taste those things, I felt so honored. Now, Freddie, he went into answered some of my questions, which I was able to get on video. So on the YouTube, I'm going to play that for everybody right now, so that you can understand exactly some of the questions and what Freddie thinks about as far as what he's been doing with Little Book and the blending. So, with that said, we'll go with that.
Very good at a young age. Dad's is more geared to be something we're going to age a little bit longer. But essentially, I think that's what it is, that the barrel flavor is coming with that 2-year-old and mingling in with that older whiskey.
So you could
It hasn't been in a long
could
time,
you
go
pick
ahead.
up the butterscotch notes on those younger barrels?
No, absolutely not.
No?
But you couldn't pick that butterscotch up on the older barrels either. So,
So it just
it's,
mixing all of them, that's just what happens.
oh yeah, yep. That's what's so cool about blending. Like I say, you get that color. It's not super dark, but most of that color is coming from that very old liquid.
Have you done any time with Scotch blenders? No, really, it's just something
No,
that
I've
you're
spent a
picking
lot
up?
of time with Shinji, the Japanese whiskey
Okay.
blender, but I'm working with him on learning whiskey techniques. What I'm doing with Little Book is kind of my unique way of blending. I have picked up some things from Shinji, but I haven't implemented them on Little Book. It's like how I do Little Book right now. But how he blends is way different than what I do. Way different.
Can you explain some of that? Or?
Well, like we would sit down in a session, and all of these glasses that are on this table would be for me, and he would have a table that has just as many glasses, and we would. He's not a big on taste. That's one thing that he said that he liked that I had said was, I think about the nose a lot. He said that for him, the nose is what really drives a lot of stuff in picking up whiskey at younger ages to start getting ready for blending. And that's the other thing is they'll use whiskey that's younger of age with a lot older whiskey. They have a few different yeast strains, so they do a lot of different things with their plots. They also have 4 different first distillation plots and 4 different second distillation plots. So a lot of combinations that they can make. And each of them, when you sit down at first, I'm like, oh man, he's gonna burn my ass because I'm not gonna be able to pick up differences in these. You know, you look at these glasses, it'd be like all these same colors, you know. So I'm kind of thinking, we're not progressing in age. He's gonna stump my ass heavy here. But I got through it pretty good. I was surprised, but just because of how nuanced they make their whiskey and how it's very singular when you start breaking apart their products. And they may go through their blending team. So we do assessment on a daily, but we'll do like Knobs Creek will be one day, then we'll do Basil. So we kind of rotate through brands. Sometimes we cross, but at any rate, they sample all the whiskey and then segregate out afterwards after they've assessed the sample. So because each one, there could be portions of each whiskey in every single one of their maybe 2 barrels to 1,000, or maybe a big percentage. But they start to separate them out as they get older. So they taste through like 300 to 400 samples a day.
So do they spit?
Oh yeah. They got spittoons that are as tall as I am. You just spit right in them.
Your dad, in his book, talked about that. They all spit, and he's not spitting. Your dad doesn't spit. And they're like, what the hell?
This is like for assessment. Now, when they do it product development, they do swallow, but early age, they're following the nose, early flavors in the mouth.
So you can see what he said. Those people on the podcast, I don't have the audio version of that, but basically what Freddie covered was just overall what he and how he goes about and how he learned to blend and what he does, and it's just pretty damn cool. So that was my first ever barrel pen. At this point in the barrel pen, it's getting over. Freddie started doing fun things like signing the bottles. I asked him if I could have this particular bottle. He said, let me take a picture of it, and then signed it and gave it to me. So I was really happy about that. And then I had obtained some Booker's Rye, which is a very fantastic rye. I'm not a fan of rye. People who listen to the show know I'm not, but I'm a fan of Booker's Rye. I'm a fan of Victor's toasted barrel strength rye. So there are some ryes I like, but this one I really love. And I got this bottle and I wanted to share it with Steve Foods and Randy Frosty and anybody else who was interested. So I pulled that out and we started, we had a pour of that. And I think I went back and I know that I poured enough for my wife on the Little Book and Jacob's Well. I poured more than I did for the first 3 for the tasting, and she knew she was driving, so she wasn't drinking too much of it. She tasted them, but it was pretty much me. So you're looking at about an hour I probably had 5 pours and on an empty stomach. And no, it had to go to 6 with the rye. It probably went to 6 with the rye. So now I'm at the point where I didn't feel drunk or like I was slurring my words, but for whatever happened, it started to go a little bit south because we took pictures and everything, and I remember taking pictures, but at the point of starting to pack up, I remember talking with Randy and whatnot, but as we started to pack up, between upstairs and downstairs, I remember getting in the elevator, but I don't remember getting to the car. And that was an endeavor right there. But my wife took me from the barrel pit straight to Starbucks. We are heading over to Freddie's mom's house, Sandy Noe. We have befriended Sandy and Fred, and so when we're down in Bardstown, a lot of times we get together. And Sandy knew we were coming. We're after the pit, so we went over. We were going over the man cave, so she got me some coffee. And when I hit that, and I think when I started drinking the coffee is when I started to come back into the realm of remembering again. Like I said, between getting to the coffee place and then I remember getting to Sandy's house, drinking the rest of the coffee, and the rest of the evening was fine. I even had whiskey sour when at the end we were there for about 2.5 hours. So I had a whiskey sour, and then before my wife drove us to dinner, and thank you very much, Randy, for your hospitality. Love the barbecue. There's, you and Kate are good people, not much better people in the world. Same thing with Sandy and Fred, just awesome people, and Freddie. Everything that you guys are doing. And you make it, when we go down to Kentucky, we feel like we have a family down there. So that is just awesome. So with that, that's pretty much my first barrel pick. So what I learned overall is one, I'm going to eat before. It's going to be a conscious effort before any barrel picks in the future that I throw down a really good base, because then I can not have to worry as much about. I almost got myself into trouble. It was close. I know that I would. From everything that happened, if I would have embarrassed myself, my wife would have been like, "We're never doing this again." But I didn't, and I was lucky because I had her there. So learned a lot. Loved every aspect of it. I love choosing. It's kind of fun to pick between different whiskeys and then see how when you nose it at first and you drink on and you do it and you go back to nosing again, how things change. So I learned a shit ton when it came to, the actual barrel pick. So that gets me to where we're at tonight. I'm going to down this to cleanse my palate. All right, I got a little bit of water here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare this 120 barrel pick from a single barrel pick from the party source. This should be damn close. This is already bottled. And I want to see the difference of something that's been bottled and what someone else has picked. And then what we had as the one. Just a little bit in here. Put that back on. All right. And then let's. I don't even know how long I've been jib-jabbering. Just checking that out. All right, we're getting there. And then I got this. I'm not going to put a whole heck of a lot in here because I want to remember. All right, I still have about 2 more of those if I ever have to want one. This goes back into my, right into my cabinet of famousness. I have a lot of stuff signed by Freddie Noe, nosing that one. It's the classic Knob Creek nose. Brown sugar. I get like a hazelnut. There's a little bit of honey. Yeah, I'm getting much. It's like, let me see. They both smell like Knob Creek. All right, this one's the Freddie, the number one that we didn't pick, but still was a good 120.5. Spicy, a little bit of cinnamon, hazelnuts there. There's some caramel, very smooth mid palate. A little bit more oaky. Yeah. So anyways, I'm tasting in these awesome Scotchy Bourbon Boy Glencairns. You can go to the website, order one there, www.scotchybourbonboys.com, or through the Patreon program you can get that. But Martin Duffy is Scotchy Bourbon Boy. He is the Glencairn glass representative. If you're interested in getting Glencairns like these etched straight from the UK, he can help you out with that. He pretty much is connected within the whiskey industry in North America. He knows pretty much everybody. I'd like to thank him for all the hookups that he's done. He has introduced me to some very famous people in the industry, and it's well appreciated. That's why I taste on every podcast with these Scotchy Bourbon Boy Glencairns. So, also, if you become an actual member at the come to a couple meetings and decide you want to become a member, when you become a member, you do get one of the Glencairns. So, let's do this one more time. Yeah, the nose, there was, what was that? There was a pepper. That wasn't there before. I want to say sandalwood. It's definitely like a sandalwood. All right. I like that. That is nice. It's got all the richness, all the hazelnut kind of taste, that Jim Beam profile, but aged that 7 years, and then that 120 proof is just solid. But that one at 120.5, that does not taste like a 120.5 proof bourbon. It's got a lot of. You get to taste the pull out. There's a little bit of vanilla, and then a very sweet. It's not chocolate. It's not tobacco. It's got a little bit of the oak. I would just say, yeah, because you haven't gone leather. Maybe a Swedish leather finish. But now let's do the. Now that one I pulled out a little bit of more vanilla bottom, but this finish is tobacco. It's not leather and it's not sweet. The finish, this is definitely classic Knob Creek, but the finish, that's bolder. That 120, this one's a much bolder, a little bit of more pepper in it. Where this one's a smoother, where you're allows you to taste more of those. Yeah, I would have to say I love Knob Creek. I love bourbon. There are no bad bourbons, and there are no. There's only better bourbons, and Knob Creek, even in its 100 proof 9-year age statement, form is a better bourbon. There's no doubt. I like Knob Creek. Knob Creek has always, since the 90s, this was in 92, but I think it was like 97, I was in commercial art and in Milwaukee, and one of the design companies there had Beam Incorporated. It wasn't Beam Centauri yet, I don't believe, but it was Beam Incorporated, and we worked on Jim Beam and Knob Creek advertisement. And I remember getting a bottle that I worked on. I did a piece of it. I illustrated the bottle using Knob Creek bottles. I used different pictures of Knob Creek bottles, and then illustrated an actual Knob Creek bottle from all the different bottles, from different bottle pictures. So it was kind of like a, whatever they called it, a montage when you made a picture of pictures. So we did that, and that was kind of cool. But I was able to keep the bottle of Knob Creek. Little did I know that I would, so 20 some years later, start to be in really loving the bourbon industry and being in the industry, revisiting and meeting the people who actually make it, which is amazing. So I would have to say, now I'm excited to see what that number 2 that we picked, what that's going to taste like in the bottle, and then put it up against other store picks in the bottle. Once again, the party source on this one, I like them both, but I would have to say that this barrel was a better barrel, the one that we got a chance to pick from with Freddie. So, once again, I always forget something or somehow don't cover everything that I want to cover, but in this case, I think that kind of gave you an insight to what that barrel pick was like. It was kind of cool because there were 8 of us around the table, and the Glencairns, there was 6 Glencairns per person. We filled them up, tasted them, numbered them, we took notes. Everybody discussed. Steve Coons recorded everything off of his iPhone, which was awesome. He had a whole setup with a microphone and that, and I look forward to actually seeing that YouTube video. But that brings us to another episode of the Scotchy Bourbon Boys in the books. So, until next time, I'm Tiny. Make sure that you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and also listen to us on your favorite podcast format. Go check out that Patreon, please. All that gets used so that we can do the trips, we can keep buying better equipment, and we love you guys. Great support lately. We'll keep doing what we do, and until next time, make sure that good bourbon equals good friends.